speed sensor that senses every disruption or every gap, and then sends signals to the electronic management system from the radial gaps, radial openings, and that then controls the braking. Okay? This is how it is fitted. You find the pole wheel fitted to the hub, and there is a sensor that is fixed stationary. The pole wheel actually rotates. Okay? Now, these pole wheels can be made by stamping, can be made by machine cutting using a 5-axis CNC lathe. It can also be, 5-axis CNC milling machine. It can also be done by sintering. These are processes which have been used for manufacturing this pole wheel. In my visit, one of my visits to US, I saw an orbital forming press manufactured by Schmidt in Switzerland being used for fuel injection equipment parts, the rotor and the barrel. I thought that is a very fine process of forming very accurately, that is near net shape. Why not use that process? So we bought a machine, erected it, and prepared a die for making this pole wheel. Then I have given a comparison here between the various processes. What you find is that in the orbital coal forming, you get two distinct advantages. One is you get an accuracy which is 10 times better than what you can get by other processes. That's a byproduct. Second is, it is near net shape. You don't have to machine it. Because of the forming process is so accurate that it gives you that accuracy without having to machine. And the third byproduct which I found incidentally is it is 10 times faster. 10 times faster than any of the machining processes that you can adopt. So of course we are not telling our customer that it is 10 times faster, so it is going to be very much cheaper. But the fact is that you get a product which is superior at a cost which is lower. So you have a winning situation. This product is not new. I did not design a new product. It's a product which is already there. But the customer is happy. So this is one example. That is the machine that we use for making this. This is one example of doing it differently. Okay, I will give you another example, not from the automotive industry. All of us were exporting goods, sending it to various other countries, and they were going by the usual fashion of, put it in whatever container you like, in whatever shape, in whatever form, and it will be loaded on a ship and it will go to the other country. That was what was happening. Till such time somebody thought, why not we standardize it by using containers? Just imagine that one single step of containerization, how much of effect it has had in the whole industry. Now you got container terminals, you got handling equipment that can handle containers, you fill a container, go and open a container. Fellows in appraising, in customs, they open a container, finish the container, go to the next one. Ships are even redesigned in order to stack the containers in the most optimal way. Just think of the enormous impact that it has had on the economics of one single aspect of doing it differently. Nobody designed anything new. Just somebody thought of an idea. Why not we send it only in containers? That has actually taken the entire logistics by storm. This is a quote actually. Containerization is a remarkable achievement. No one foresaw how the box would transform everything it touched, from ships and ports to patterns of global trade. Containerization is a monument to the most powerful law of economics, that of unanticipated consequences. Okay, that is the first part. Do it differently. First principle. The second principle I would say is, use the customer as your innovator. You need to have somebody who will give you innovative ideas. Use the customer. You're supplying something to the market, and there's a customer who uses it. Usually, he finds a way by which he will make use of your product in a different fashion. And that gives you idea as to how to meet that requirement. When I was talking to Mahindra and Mahindra R&D engineers, they were the first to actually fit in Xylo or Scorpio, I think, the micro hybrid, that is the stop and start. That idea came because whenever you travel in an auto rickshaw, if you watch, when you come to a traffic light and if it is red, that fellow switches off the engine. And he starts only after the red or the green signal comes, because he saves fuel. So, instead of doing the very sophisticated thing that Mercedes-Benz was doing, cut off one cylinder, that is the approach that they took. But Mahindra's decided, why not we simply make a contraption that will switch off the engine when it is idling and start again the moment you touch. That is the result of this micro hybrid. Of course, now others are adopting it as well. It is famously told that Mr. Ratan Tata saw 4 chaps with great difficulty traveling in a two-wheeler. And that was what gave him the idea that I will give a 1 lakh car so that he will graduate with a small amount of extra money into having a roof over his head and carrying 4 people in dignity. This is what he said. And that is what was the seed for Nano being born, I am told. So that is another thing. That is, use the customer as your innovator. Now, that is the second principle. The third principle that I would like to share with you is, you can incorporate new properties or characteristics to an existing product. Because in this, there is no better example than the mobile phone. The mobile now can take pictures, you can hear music, you can watch even TV, or you can watch news, and you can put your engagements. You can do almost everything. Incidentally, you can also use it as a phone. That is how it has become now. So that is an example of the more feature you add, the more innovative it becomes and the more attractive it becomes. So you get an additional market share because of the additional feature that you add on. So that is another principle of innovation. Incorporate new properties or characteristics to an existing product. The next principle I would like to share with you is use necessity to drive innovation. Necessity is the mother of invention, they say. But I would like to slightly modify it and say necessity is the mother of innovation. I would like to share with you 2 examples. We have all heard about the Dabbawalas of Mumbai. The simple office goer in Mumbai, what does he want? He wants at a specified time homemade lunch. He would like to have his lunch from home, but he would like to have it at a specified time. And he would like to have it hot. This was a very simple requirement of the customer. And that was becoming very difficult. And the solution that Dabbawalas offered to that has become so famous that they claim that the failure rate is 1 in 6 million. It's better than Six Sigma. It is so good that it is being discussed in management schools, as a case study. So it is possible to find an innovative solution if you have the necessity. I'll share with you another example. I put the second example there as MCC ring coating. This is a bit of personal experience. We had a collaborator from United States. Late 2008, we fell apart. We decided to part company, because they wanted majority share in our company and we were not willing to give up that. So it was a no-go situation. So we decided, okay, let's part as friends. Up to that, the Indian automotive industry was only working up to Euro 3, levels of emission, Euro 3. They were graduating to Euro 4 and Euro 5. We needed to have a coating in the top ring that can withstand the aggressive environment offered by Euro 4 and Euro 5 engines. We didn't have any. We were already supplying pistons, we were supplying the second rings and the third ring and the liners. If we don't find some solution to that, we would lose all the business because the whole thing goes as an assembly. If you don't supply the complete assembly, the customer is not interested. So you got to make sure that you find a solution to that. And that I had to do, find a solution before Euro 4 is legislated. If it is legislated and find after that, goodbye, thank you, and they will go to somebody else. So we put a team on the job, innovated a means of embedding ceramic in a chrome moly composite coating. By developing a crack, you see there are cracks on the surface, and inside the crack, we embed ceramic, seal it again. So that gives an extremely wear-resistant coating that can withstand Euro 4, Euro 5 aggressive applications. So you find a solution because you have a necessity, you have a deadline to meet. Otherwise, the loss that you will have is far greater than you can imagine. So that can also be a driver for innovation. The next principle I want to share with you is you don't have to always create your own ideas. Borrow someone else's ideas and apply in your business. Classic example is the success of LG and Samsung in Indian market. Do you know the CD, the audio CD, the DVD, the VCD, the X-ray tube, everything you name in that electronic stuff was all invented by Philips. In India, the largest selling FMCG is LG. Samsung grew from 125 crores 10 years ago to 9,500 crores last year. You know what LG did? Sorry, it is Samsung. What Samsung did? They tied up with IIT Delhi and created a user lab there first. So whatever electronic product they wanted to sell in India, first they dump a few things there and tell them, give it to any customer you like, but I want to know whether it is suitable for India. Customize it for India. They did that before they actually marketed it. And so you have features. Indian fridge buyer, he would like to have his vegetable fresh. So all that you do is to put a freshener inside, Some small tweaking of the product that gives you that amount of customization that an Indian customer appreciates. That's all that you need to do. You don't have to invent anything. So borrow someone else's idea, but apply it very intelligently to promoting your business. That takes you to places. And that's what these people did. The success of these two, Korean FMCG, is actually a case study in point. Of course, the last one I have put here as create a completely new product. For you, it need not be a new product for the globe, but for the Indian market, the market that you address, that does require a lot of investment, require dedicated teams for you to develop that. Tata's had no product at all at the low-end commercial vehicle. They were known for making big commercial vehicles, heavy commercial vehicles, medium commercial vehicles. And they forayed into making passenger car. But they didn't have a product that will address the small trader, the small manufacturer, the small carrier. That is when they brought in this ACE. And that took the market by storm. Of course, others have followed suit. That is borrowing someone else's idea. But you can create a new product, completely new product, and be successful. But you need to do a lot of market study, listen to the customer's voice, invest, be prepared to take a risk. That's when you will succeed in this case. Okay, now having shared with you some ideas or some thoughts on how to innovate, there are some do's and don'ts I would like to share with you. Of course, you have to encourage out-of-box thinking, in other words, lateral thinking, how to do it differently. Otherwise, you cannot be successful in innovation. Obviously, you should not punish failures because failure is a part and parcel of innovation. You must have the courage to implement. If you think an idea is good, you must implement because there will always be some risk element involved. You must take that risk. and reward innovative ideas. And small group activity is a good way of promoting innovation culture within the company. And you must always have, whether you spend it or not, allocate a small budget for implementing innovative ideas. 1% of sales turnover typically, or 2% of sales turnover, to be kept as a budget for implementing innovative ideas.
I request Mr. O.A. Balasubramaniam, Managing Director, Roots Cars.
Thank you very, very much, sir. It's
all of us. I will try real quick to wind up. But before I could go, I would want to thank Ms. Madhavan, because the micro hybrid is something that I'm still trying to figure out. I think is one of the most beautiful thing in my car. So you know, I probably will sync up with you to understand what's the flow chart, because I am trying various combinations. Press the act button, then take it off, it's going to stop. If I switch to a gear, and so I'll probably sync up with you. I really need the flow chart as to how the micro hybrid works in the Mahindra. So I was really excited to come here when Karthik called me and said, hey, you know, Paul, I've got this opportunity to speak to an audience such as you all. I really could not resist. And one more thing that I want to congratulate this organization is the names that I see here. Of course, I work for the first one that's up there, but the other two definitely represent a huge business focus. Robert Bosch. So Robert Bosch, I better know him as Robert Bosch Engineering India Limited. So I work as a technology advisor for Microsoft, and I work with these industry leaders in understanding what an industry needs. Mr. Gandhi in his address said that there's no proper exposure to industries like us, which are auxiliary units to large industries. Unfortunately, you know, there's so much focus on the large industries, the mainstream of where the revenue comes is lost. So that is where we as Microsoft are working with business leaders like Bosch, PTC. PTC have a wonderful product for product management. You saw that, it's called Windchill. So we have an array of products, be it SharePoint, be it SQL Server, all of them work really well. So congratulate to the team for putting this whole event together. So why am I here? So one thing is definitely I want to talk to an audience as diverse, as dynamic, as agile as you are, but even more so I had a reason to come down. So recently I was, so like I said, I love my cars. So I read a lot about cars, and I was flipping through Economic Times, and I read this article. It was titled The Car Capital of India. And any guesses what's the car capital of India? Actually, I heard Chennai quite a bit. You'll be surprised. It is none of the metros. It's actually, the number one is Ludhiana, and the second one is Cochin. And what am I trying to say here? The next growth story in India is not in the metro anymore. The metros have reached the saturation. The next growth story for us is going to be in cities like Coimbatore. My sister, my akka is married here, so I've come here quite often. So I know there was one mall coming up. Now I see 3 malls coming up. What does it show? There's so much more focus here. And you as the industry are in the, you know, what we call, you know, the sinusoidal wave, are in the apex or the crux of the wave. So now is the time that you will have to react and take this potential forward. So what I really want to talk about, I don't want to go very specific to a particular product that Microsoft does, but I wanted to present to you a picture of how the future would look like. You could choose to go to that picture today, a week from now, a month from now, a year, 5 years from now. But the point is we all got to go there. And I need you all to understand that that productivity story. You know, we heard Dr. Ramaswamy talk about the war against innovation and the need for not to focus on production but productivity. The Chinese market, 2.5 increase in production with just productivity rather, with a 0.5 increase in pay. Now that's going to help us offset China. So of course China has their own advantages. As Indians, we've always been unique. History has held us with that. But how do we use small tactical differences to help us build, bridge that 2.5% gap in productivity is what I'm here to talk about. So I'm just presenting 5 different scenarios and I'm winding up. And I'm not going product specific. I have some great partners here. We have Robert Bosch, we have Quadra. So they would really be happy to answer your questions. I'm also available after the session to talk about all these scenarios that I'm talking about. So I was supposed to only talk about consumerization of IT, what you see there. But I probably, I said, you know what, looking at the audience, I decided to change my slide deck just 30 minutes ago. I chose a very different holistic picture because of what I heard that China gives 2.5% productivity. How do they give it? This slide has that, and that's the reason I changed the slide the last moment. So talking about 5 things. Consumerization of IT. How does it impact your life, my life? How is it going to impact our organization's life? And so talk about cost cutting, cloud computing. I understand cloud computing is going to be a big change. And integration of multi-generational workforces, and the last one is distributed workforce. So I did tell you that the next growth story is from a city like Coimbatore. I have a very close friend of mine. He works as a freelance trainer in Coimbatore. We did engineering together. I met him for lunch today after 7 years. So I said, his name is Leslie. I said, hey Leslie, Machan, tell me what is that is happening in Coimbatore that I'm seeing so much growth. He comes from a family that have had their own industries. His grand uncle has an industry, so they've inherited an industry as a family. So he said 3 things, which is very, very important, and I think you would resonate. If I'm wrong, I would let you correct me. But he said, hey Paul, listen, one thing that's changing is all these organizations have been family owned. They've been passed on from one generation to another. Most of them are second or third generation organizations, second generation of the family. Now, what has happened is that the new generation wants to change it. And he gave me an excellent example. He's working with an organization, a pump, it's a very generic within Coimbatore, but one of the leading pump manufacturing organizations, family run again, and they hired, the new generation of that family hired Deloitte to do the HR operations. Now, who's Deloitte? Deloitte does the audit and HR for Microsoft, okay? The number 1 software organization goes to an agency, gets the HR person to do my HR. And the same organization does the HR for an organization that manufactures pumps in Coimbatore.